Welcome to Bunny's Designs. This is for my new channel, Bunny's Designs Bible Journaling. I wanted to show what's in my little bag because I love big tote bags, but I'm away most weekends, so I can't kind of carry lots of things with me. And the tote bags are never zipped on the top, so you can spill things out. So this little bag here was from the pound shop. And again, I'm a bit of a tight Yorkshire lass. I wanted to show what was in my little bag that's going to keep me going. And it's got to be, when I'm away at weekends, I can just do this in peace and have everything with me. So in my little bag, I've got my Bible, I've got my little book of watercolours, and I had my little water pot, which I've just taken out. And I did find the original water pots that we had years and years ago. And these are fab for two reasons. One is they're easy to hold, but the most important thing is they never leak for obvious reasons. So fab for putting in here. But nowadays we can always buy things with water, and so that can go in there. Then I bought the tin especially, but the cream in this is fab if you've got sore feet. This is brilliant. I've got a little wet sponge in there, and it's an experiment. I haven't decided, but they use these for nail varnish remover, so I thought that might work. So that's going in there as well, and these two will fit into here. And then this is just a bag of general rubbish at the moment. It will be sorted. And again, I think these were from Ryman's, or I tell a lie, I think they were £1.29 from Boys. We have a Boys in the UK, so that's normally quite good for supplies. And again, that's in there, and it all fits in. So I've got everything I need in there, and I think that's quite good for 10 by 14. And the best thing is that if it rains, your Bible is safe. So this is mine, and again, as a tight Yorkshire lass, I made just got to think I'm in frame because I can't see the top of the screen. That's better. So I made this from an old plastic file from the pound shop, and Look at Better Days. So that fits quite nicely in there, and it's not really to protect the page, although it does. It's there to give me a nice flat surface when I'm drawing with an ink pen. So that will sit in there. But I've just realised that I have my little book of watercolours here. And that's my, and everybody's still, this has got to be dry if it's going out on there. These lids, I put a piece of paper in it, so I'm going to stick that in there properly. So that's my book with professional watercolours and Winsor Newton pans, Peerless. The full set of Peerless, which is 40 odd. Derwent watercolour pencils 72, ink 10 72 pencils, Prismalo, Graphitint, Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2s. These are Caran d'Ache metallic pencils. I've got the Hydrus in here. A bit of an experiment with some professional pastel pencils. That was that didn't work very well. It's Winsor & Newton gouache, and it cracked on the paper, so I put it onto here, and that's just cracked and flaked off. So it's better not putting it on the plastic. And Kiritake Ganzi Tambi watercolours, and I love these, especially the gold, because that's the one I'll be using for the lettering, and it's fab. So if you've got any questions, pop them in caps, because if I can see it in caps, I know to squint and have a look. I put these in here because I bought these recently and thought what we're going to use them for, because I don't use stamps very often. I've got a little practice water postcards, because I am still playing about with this design. I've done hundreds of this little design. Just bear with me 2 seconds. I just have to wish my daughter good luck because I forgot. Just bear with me 2 seconds. She's gone for an interview. My memory is like a sieve. I do apologise. Oops, wrong girl. That's good. Sorry about that. I just suddenly remembered that. And then there's another pencil case. Again, these were this was £1.20 odd. It'd be nice if it came in a set, but it doesn't. I also have one this size. Again, I found them. I think they were a couple of pounds, but this is perfect because I can get the Kirby Roseanne's Sketchy Stories in it, and I can also get my 600 watercolours in there. Scaled down slightly. With a very tiny little water pot and 2 tiny pens. That takes my water colouring in book down to an A6 size, a lot smaller size. So they're in here for emergencies, not that I need them. And the one thing that's missing out of there is the paintbrushes. So I'm quite pleased that I've got everything in here. And again, you see, I'd forgotten the paintbrushes. So if I forgot the paintbrushes, I would have 2 or 3 in the bottom of there. So not all is lost. The gold watercolour is Gansai Tambi watercolours. And I absolutely love these. Just look at that somewhere. I absolutely love these. But there's only one problem with them. It's a little bit bigger than A4, so that's, I think they're 13 by 7 3/4. But I have a lot of problems with this because every time I open it, I drop them out, and they're beautiful, but I drop them out. And I very rarely use them in this form. I've done one video where I've used them here at home. But I have to say, and the worst thing is, it's only in the full set. But that gold, I haven't tried the bronze or the silver, but I will be doing, I'll show you something to do with that. But the gold is fantastic. It's the best one I've ever seen, and this does not do it justice on the lid. But you know, I could actually get that in my, I could get that in here if I wanted. It would go in there, but because I have all the other colours in there, and if I drop the bag I might crack the pans, so they stay at home safe. In fact, I haven't had them out for months. So I should pop that bag safe up there. And they're here, look, and because I've got so many in my little book, I'm labelling them. So I label them with the Kuretake Gansai Tambi watercolours. And I made them just by making a puddle in the pan and then squishing the colour out with a big brush. And I've used them quite a lot. You can see the greens I've used with a very fine brush. So there's a big fat puddle of colour there. And the reason that the colours last in my book is because I flick. So I might use a yellow Inktense pencil, Derwent pencil, and then I might flick and use a Gansai Tambi watercolour green. And that's how I do. And then the Hydrus are in here as well. They look very messy, but that's all pure colour. So I have to put 2 little tabs. I've made 2 sheets of those. So there's quite a few hundred in there. And then if you realise that there's a grayscale, and I want to go through all these supplies and use them in the Bible, because I was only going to use Derwent watercolour pencils because they don't show through. But I have this devotional Bible, which I first found this one for, I think, £1 in the pound shop, in the charity shop. No, I tell a lie, it wasn't that one. Bear with me 2 seconds. I was going to practice in that one. Oh, sorry, I didn't know there was a dog behind me. Just bear with me 2 seconds. Let's see if I can just reach this. This is the little one, and I didn't like the cover, so I made a cover. But when I say it's not a proper Bible, I mean it's not a Bible as in oops, I've creased the corners. So I've just got some gold paper and covered it over. But I used it as a practice because of the thin pages. But the best thing to practice on, and this will be the first lesson which I'm going to do today, is, it's a she, is to watercolour a napkin. Because if you can get very dry watercolouring, and you can watercolour on a napkin, then you can train yourself to be very dry, stay within the lines, and then that will make sure that your Bible pages are really, really nice. So this set here, and I don't know what it's called, but I think it was only £2 or £3. They're metallic, they're quite nice as well. Travis, what to glue what in? Which would I? To glue which in? There is a lot of videos, and I'm doing a series on. I'm doing a series on this little book. I think there's part 1 and 2 out already, because I'm making one as a giveaway. This is the giveaway. So again, I went into the pans, and I think that's part 2. I cut a couple of millimetres off the pans, off the colours, and put them back in. There is a video that I did a few weeks ago. So they're the Winsor & Newton. They're only student grade, these, but I've got 3 out of 1. But you've got to be extremely careful. But I've been using a scalpel blade since I was 16, because that's how we were taught. If you sharpen your pencil with a knife, it will never break, unless you stab it and you're rough with it. But it'll never split like it does in a pencil sharpener. And we were taught to with a scalpel, but you've got to be very careful. So I've made these little pans. I've cut them up and put those, and I used ordinary white glue, ordinary white PVA glue. Can't tell you what brand, but it won't be expensive because I'm a tight Yorkshire lass. I've just had a sort round, and I put it into one of these that I bought again at the model show, and a little bit of glue on the back. But if you watch the video, it'll show you. Now, because this wasn't for me, I put extra glue around the edge, so that is not going to move. One of mine did pop off, but these will not come out. They are really well glued in. Travis, which one did you mean? The these, or all the other squares? So that's quite thin, and in here, so we've got these, and I just found a packaging which I'm going to cut up to make a palette. And everybody's got a paper palette on the other side. We've put 18 Gansai PH Dr. Martens, and the dots are opposite, and as long as you don't mush this too far, you can use this and shut it. If you mix these together, you would have to clean that off, but that's all pure colour, so I've left it on. And then I've put 40 Peerless are in there as well, and I just put the and I've labelled them all and made little colour squares. So as you can see on here, there's a colour scale, and you can get about 10. If I do that, that might do it. You can get 10 colours. So potentially there's 6,000 colours in here, not 600. But so that's all the Peerless that I have. And then there's 24 squares going to be here for the Derwent Graphitint, and you colour the squares in, and then I do a little square coloured grade scale there. No, the Gansai. Oh yes, the Gansai Tambe watercolours. Oh, you mean if I glue them in? Sorry, yes. Yes, I never thought of that, but I don't take them out. I've had them out. I haven't had them out in the 2 or 3 years since I made the book. They just stay in there, and I work out of my little book of colours. Because the other thing you find, and I did one very bad video when I first started 8 months ago. And I was ill on the sofa, so there's a lot of them. And with all these supplies, which will fill a suitcase, you don't have the control. You can't get that pale colour if you use it out the pan, because these are beautiful professional watercolours. And so you have a lot of more control if you put them on a paper palette. And that's why this book works so well, especially for Bible journaling, because you can get these colours very dry. As soon as you wet the pans, you've got a paintbrush full of colour. Here you haven't, and this is why this works. I'm still going to Derwent. I've emailed them and they haven't got back to me, but I'm going to Derwent Pencil Factory because we're doing a model railway show in a couple of weeks. And so I'm going to go give them this idea and say, you know, bring these out, because people can buy the 72 Inktense pencils like this. And I think this is the 21st century colour watercolour set, because you've got nearly 300 colours there, and that's about 10 millimetres. You've got 72 Inktense. I've got all the Derwent sketching pencils, the grayscale, the black pencils, and then 72. Sorry, it's not 300. There's 172, 144, 144, 6, 8, 10, about 150 just in those. There's 45 Peerless, and of course this one, there's every colour on the planet here. And this was an afterthought. This is what led me on to the watercolours. So if you have a look at the other videos, there's one about how I make this little book, but I'm making this one as a giveaway, so every week I'm putting something else into here. The Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2s. A lot of them I don't have labels for, so they're going in next. The Gansai Tambe watercolours will be going in here, and that's my giveaway on Tuesday. Because I was greedy and it was an experiment, I've broken the spine, but I did it before I was ill, so I can't use my hands now. But if you break the spine, you can get a lot more in, because that just goes to here. But mine's quite scruffy. But this one obviously has that lovely protection on it. But you can use anything, and oops, and that's what I was going to come to, is, I'll go through this first and then I'll go about the little book. So in here, I think I recognise this one. This is, I just put this back onto thingy because it has a tendency to jump. Bear with me 2 seconds. Use my magic. And this is the gentleman that gave me the idea here in this video. If you can see, I'll pop it back on there a second. If you can see this here, he scribbled on the back of his sketchbook squares of colour. And this is his beautiful, and you can do lots of things with this. So I want permission to use this video because they're not just pencils for watercolouring. You can scrape them, you can do all sorts of things with them, make washes with them. So I want to show the techniques that this guy did in the late 80s, 90s. I use it as trying to get that a little bit. I think that's the best I'm going to do. So I hope that made sense. Excuse me, I'm going to have a drink of water. That silly rattly thing. So I practiced on here. So I practiced on here first. This is what I'll be doing in a minute. And then practice in a proper Bible. And these were those paints that I showed. Now they're not in my little book. And some of the colours bled through, so you've got to be a little bit careful. But on here, there's hardly any bleed through. So I decided that the ones you couldn't even see, these are the Derwent watercolour pencils. And I'm probably going to stick with this actually because I don't want show through or bleed through on my Bible. So the watercolour pencils, I think I might have changed my mind again. I might keep just to those because they're 72 and they're beautiful colours. These are watercolours, so these are a lot obviously thicker, but I like the colours, so I was playing with colour. So that gave me a good indication of what was going to happen in the Bible study. And I have done another page, but I can't find it, and I don't know why I can't find it. I can't find the other one. I can't find it. So that, I was brave last week, and I did this one. And because it was live, I tried everything. So every one of these is in my book. I don't know if I tried the Gansai Tambi watercolours, but the Inktense are in there, the Derwent are in there. This is Gansai Tambi watercolour. This is the gold. This is how beautiful it is. So I intend to, in this particular Bible, I intend to use my floral pattern because it's my design, and I'd like to bring a stamp out, but I'm not sure how to do it because then that would be so much easier. And then I was designing lettering, so there is a lettering to go with these flowers. So the idea is that if anybody wanted to copy this, they would just stamp flowers all around, and there's borders and corners, and That was one of the original flowers that I used. And I was going to make a tag. Again, I was playing with the drawings, and then I decided, well, I may as well make my own. So that's on the next job to do. But the flowers, they're all going to be like the same little petals, so they'll all match. But I will be using different colours, so it won't be very boring. Not every page will be the same. But as you can see on this side, they did quite well. The gold is a little bit, but I did that twice. So I'm hoping that that's going to be better. But I didn't really want a lot of show through. But I couldn't be bothered, especially when I'm going to be away. I didn't want the hairdryer and the gesso in and the mess. So I've got this. But the other idea I have is, because I'm only using the Derwent watercolour pencils, and they're 72. I've got this out now and I don't know where I've put it. This is a Polly Pocket, and you can make the little books here. You can make these little books out of anything. It's basically anything that's for a photograph that's got the plastic to protect it. So I bought these, and I love this little one. I'm going to make this little one for me because I think this is a real diddy one. And because you can get a piece of paper in between each one, because you're supposed to get a photograph, the spines are designed to flex and to give you some space. So that's going to be a little fat chunky book full of colour. But these are from the pound shop. Can't find the A4 size. This was from Wilko's. Again, this would work. This was 75p, I think. What I would do with this one is I would make the sheet, the colour, stick it in the middle with sellotape. That's how I would do this one. This was for my mum-in-law's 90th birthday party. She's 90, bless her. So, and then I would put the paper, because it's all made from photocopy paper, but there is a video on it. So I stick the photocopy paper in here, then put the paper palettes of the sketchbook paper. You don't want to use watercolour paper for two reasons. One is it's expensive and I'm a tight Yorkshire lass, but the main important thing is the colour will sink in if it gets wet, and we want the colour to sit on top. And these paper palettes in my book I've had for 4 or 5 years now, and I've just when they've run out I've just re-scribbled them, and that's only cheap sketchbook paper, the Sea Life one, about £140. So it's not very, very thick, but the colour sits on top lovely. The only ones I didn't do that with is the Liquid Ink 10s, and because this was quite heavy, you know, it's a little bit chunky, I put it on one of these postcards, and that will guarantee that it will last. So my idea is going to be put the 72 watercolour pencils in bigger squares in one of these books, and then this will sit in here at the back. Oops. And I also have a template if I want to do some lines and things. And so I've got my 72 pencils, and if I actually put a paintbrush here, I don't need anything else. All my colours are going to be in here. So I've got 72 coloured pencils. I've got a pen and a water brush in there. So that actually technically is my tote, my Bible tote. That's all I need. I just have to cut a little bit off each edge for that one. And the reason I did that is because my recent purchase was this gorgeous book. And again, if I cut this down very carefully, that will sit in the back. So in my handbag I need a pen and a water brush. Sorry, not a water brush, it's too wet. A pen and a brush and my little water pot. And that's all I need. Oh, I didn't know I had to. Oh dear. I didn't know I had to. Bunny Designs rings a bell. 12. I'll have to delete one, won't I? Sorry about that. I didn't know I had to. So again, I can get that into there. And I don't really have to think about it. So this is my first page ever. And again, I use the little purple. And because it's cut for the little Bible, it's just a bit short. But and this is, I did iron it actually. I have a travel iron, but there's no bleed through. There's show through, but no bleed through. Let me write that down. Another little job I've got to do. Sorry, I didn't know I'd got to. How strange. So I was quite impressed with that, and I really enjoyed it. I think I made a video about that. I can't remember, but I did have to iron it a little bit. Just got a little bit crinkled. And again, you know, they're Derwent watercolour pencils, so they're quite vibrant enough, because I do like the pastel colours, I must admit. I'm not sure I want to do vibrant colours in my Bible, because it's a real nice meditative state that you're not doing this because it's a colour book. You're concentrating on the passage you're reading and on there. So I wanted something that wasn't going to tax my brain, and I didn't want to start acrylics and gesso and hairdryers, because that's not how I would not be in a Bible creative state if I was using all my noisy stash. I want to be sitting quietly, probably behind the model railway stall, in my own little world, doing this. I don't want to be and the other thing is, between having this book real next to me here, I flick through the 6 pages that I have, and I touch the brush in the water pot, and I touch the colour, and I'm away, and I'm moving from here to here. So I'm not moving my wrist too much. I'm not moving lots of things. I have a little cushion tray, and they sit on the cushion tray with the water and the sponge, and that's to take off a lot of water because you want it very dry. And that to me is my little world, and that will help me stay in control of what I'm doing. So I'm thinking about what I'm doing because I'm Bible studying, I am reading, I'm doing my spiritual thing. I don't want to be thinking about getting the hairdryer and doing lots of creative things, because this is not what I'm about in here. I am when I do the other things, but when I'm in here, I'm in this mode, if that makes sense. So that's what I wanted. Oh, welcome back, Sandy, welcome back. I was just talking about my little Bible book and how I want to carry on. So the first thing I thought I would do, as much as I really want to get into here, and again I'm quite impressed that, you know, I did iron it. I used a travel iron. Don't use a steam iron. I ironed it, and I think I made actually more creases with the iron. I made a bit of a pig's ear because I wasn't sure what I was doing. So probably would have been better leaving it, because it was only a little bit crinkled. But I'm going to really enjoy working with these pastel colours. Didn't really like the blue and purple, but I've done it now, so hey ho. But I wanted to show you the best way, and this also is for the other things I do as well. Watercolouring in Imagimorphia. I'm working extremely dry because the pages are flat, but I'm getting some really nice watercolour effects. And again, I find this a really nice, simple way to work. But the pages are flat. And I learnt that by watercolouring on a napkin. And I found this in Tesco's, and I wish I'd bought more because they were only £1 or so. And I thought, oh, wish I'd bought more, but I didn't, and I can't find them now. You do need a white background behind, of course, because it's a single sheet of napkin. I've taken off all the layers, and I've kept the layers because that's what gave me the idea. Now, you can't use the rotring pen. You've got to use the Micron, or I think it was the black. I think it was this one. So what you do is you get, again, your single sheet, and it would be, if I did it again, I would probably stick it down. And again, you can iron these. If you iron them first, they're flat, because this is a soft edge, so you scrape it out, and then you kind of very carefully, and it doesn't catch, and it's waterproof. So when you watercolour it, it doesn't run unless you get too wet. I just have to put the camera onto. If you get the camera too wet, it will bleed. But otherwise it doesn't, and I can live with that. I can live with that. And this is what gave me the idea for the bubble. Now if you're too rough, you catch it, you put a hole in it. You've just got to stroke it carefully and keep it taut. It wasn't taut there. It wasn't tight. And you can just keep your doodle. And then you colour it in. So just let me find the lid for this pen. So this is the best one because it's got a rounded end and it doesn't rip. And this is the Staedtler Pigment Liner 005. And I did find that's thin. So again, you can use the tiniest amount of water. But what I use now is, I love these hospital water pots because they don't leak for obvious reasons. But I've just put this together. Now normally I use this with a piece of kitchen paper. Now when I do it in the Kirby Roseanne book and all the other colouring books, I use a damp baby wipe. But when you're doing it on here, you need a kitchen paper, completely dry. You want almost a completely dry brush. And again, that's why it works really well. I'm looking for a piece of kitchen roll. But actually, this is dried out overnight. This is dried out overnight, this baby wipe. So I can use this. So we want our little book of watercolours. That normally doesn't fall out, that, but I took it out to use in the other book. So I want my Derwent watercolours that I'm flicking through. So turn that upside down. And you've got to be careful because obviously it's a serviette. It's designed to soak up water. So you've got to be very careful and keep your water away. So if you bear with me 2 seconds, I will zoom in a bit. Technology would be wonderful if it would only hold what you wanted it to hold. It would be brilliant, wouldn't it? I think that's the best we're going to get. Would be good to just flick a button and it would go, but it won't always do that. So, and I'm not going to believe this, but I can't find my brushes. I don't know what I've done with them. They're not far away. I do know they're not far away. If I hadn't have tidied up, I would have had them beside me. But I've actually tidied out the drawers. I tidied out the drawers. But then I do have lots of things out. I've never tidied the drawers, why should you? How strange. I have found everything I need except for my brushes. How interesting is that? I never normally put my brushes far away. Oh, how annoying is that? You have to bear with me a little bit. I've lost them. How strange is that? I have lost all my brushes. Never mind. I will find something in a second. Can't even imagine where I would put them. I found 3 kitchen rolls. I've found 3 kitchen rolls now. And no brushes. How very strange. Luckily, I have a small brush in there, so I can still... But you need to do it with a rigger. So let's hope I can find a rigger. Well, I cannot believe I've lost my brushes. So I did have a rather large tidy up. You should never tidy up because you can't find things. Oh, thank you, Sandy, thank you. She's she wants to work with animals, and she's gone to the local. She's gone to the local. I can't believe I can't find the paintbrushes. Under there. She's gone to the local RSPCA place to volunteer to do a few days a week, because that's part of the course. Well, I am astounded that I can't find my brushes. And I wonder... And I never normally put them all together in the same thing. Ow! Thumb. Trap thumb. It would have put my glasses on. So I'm going to watercolour that in a second. I'm going to watercolour that in a second. But you do need a rigger. You really do need the riggers, which is why I thought I could use another one. But see if I've got a 10 in here. Let's see if I've got a rigger in here. All sorts of rubbish in here. You want a fine brush, but you need the rigger because you need the damp brush. And I should have a 10-0. You see, I used to paint with little tiny diddy ones. That's not a brilliant rigger because it won't go to a point, will it? It's a cheap fine liner one, and they don't always go to a point. It's not really that good. Well, I'm dumbfounded. I never tidy up, but because I'm moving the desks around, because I want to do some I don't think, the only thing I could have found is an old rigger in there, but there isn't one. So, and this is a handy little thing as well. It's from the bathroom and it's seen better days, but you can put your paintbrushes in here and put your water pot in there. So I just need a second to put my glasses back. The ladies wished you well. How did you get on?
I got it.
You got it. Fantastic. Very good. Was he impressed that you'd had a disabled rabbit and all sorts?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay, darling. Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's good. She needs a placement for her course. Sorry about that. Oh, well, she got it. That was good. That was good. So we had a disabled rabbit. Now I put the glasses on so I can see where I've put the paintbrushes. I can't believe it. I said normally my desk is a mess, but I don't know everything is. And the minute I've tried to tidy up, I've lost things. So just bear with me 2 minutes. I call this the live stream gremlin, because the minute you go live, something happens. And I can't honestly remember anything. Nigel, do excuse me a second. I've got to find the riggers. Nigel, I'm live, darling. Could you shut the door, please? Thank you. Just bear with me 2 seconds. I don't know, I've done before. I think it's because I was moving the desk, so I thought I'd better put them aside. I don't think I'm doing that one either. Well, how very strange that I should lose. Found them. I knew I'd put them somewhere safe. Sorry about that. I call that the gremlin. The stream gremlin. Right, put the little blanket over the knees like Granny. Oh, I do remind me of my granny, although she was in her 80s when she used to do that. A mouthful of cold tea. And now I need to take the glasses off. Sorry about that. So, the riggers. Now I've got into the habit. It's taken me a good few months to get this perfect. But when I'm using a large area, I use the large riggers. And I've started to use them in 3s. But when I'm doing the very fine work, I use a 10-0. I use a 5-0. and I use a 2-0, and I have actually been known to use a 1. Oh, there's a 0 there. So I've got quite a few that I use, but when I'm doing very, very dry work, that's what you need. And this has got to be extremely dry. So we've got, and most of them, that's the wrong one. That's a different one, but actually it will work. It's not a rigger. But the Artmaster Series 55, don't call it a rigger. That's the 10-0. So I'll show you the difference. This is a Daler Rowney liner, number 10, and this is a Pearl Artmaster 55. And that's the difference. They're both 10-0s, but the rigger is longer. And it just got to a point. I've just used them quite a lot, that's all. So I'm using those 4, and if you wet them, they go back to their original state. The 10-0 one might flare. I use that an awful lot. So I have another one somewhere. So I may have to resort to that one. But what you need is a damp brush and a tiny amount of colour on the end. Now those brushes have been dunked, so they're quite wet, but they will dry very quickly. So I'll show you how to use this one. So in the little book, so I'm dunking in the water, and I normally have a little pot. But I'm going to start with this. This is it's a sponge that's wet. Now this is not an experiment because I've never done this before. But I used to use a sponge. So this is now damp. So if we're just stroking, just see. Let's see if I can get this. Can see what I'm doing. So I'm just stroking the colour. Now that's gone too wet, too dry, that. So I've got the colour on here, and then I'm just stroking that onto there. And what that will allow you to do is to teach you to be quite dry. And you need to stop short of the line and it'll carry on, but it won't bleed through. It's very delicate work, but if you can do it on this, and again, I'll show you on this, and it will go through, so you've got to be careful that it's dried. So I'll pick a green leaf, and I usually use the Derwent. Don't normally go with Graphitint or anything. And that's a little bit dry, but under all these lights it does very quickly, and you're just dropping the colour in. And if you can work this dry, and you can learn to stroke the colour in, that gives you the skills to then work in any other book, any colour book you want, because you've learnt to do that as dry. Then if you photocopy, it'll dry all that, and that looks very delicate. So if you then photocopy any page of your colour book, you can play with colour, and there's between the tissue and the photocopy paper, you will get the Bible page dampness. And if you practice on your first page, I found a bit of plastic. So I've drawn these with a permanent ink. It's a Rotring fine pen. And I do prefer this one. This is the one I've used. It's a new set, but I've used it for years. But you have to use them vertical. They're what I say years ago, when we did graphic design, you had to draw everything by hand, so everything had to be very precise. And architects used to use these. So again, just really carefully. This is permanent ink. Just do my doodle. As I say, I've been drawing this for almost 40 years now, so I can kind of play about with it and change it a bit. Excuse my stomach. And what you can't do is loiter. Oops. Because if you go back, it'll go through. But I thought for permanent Indian ink, Rotring Indian ink, which is what this is, that was going to be enough for me. Quite can live with that. Yes, I'm using the Derwent watercolours. That particular one was a sap green. It's a bit tricky because I've got so many things to hold down here, but so again I've got the paintbrush. So I normally leave that into there, but so I've got the pen to draw and I've got the colours, so there's nothing, you know, I can go forever. So I'm going to try this because again this is wet, so I'm going to try and see just how wet it is. You need it a little bit damp because you've got to activate the paper palette, but we'll choose a nice red. And there's a Geranium Lake, and then just stroke the colour in. And again, something quite nice. I'm actually going back to my damp baby wipe, because if it's too dry you can't activate your colour. And then you need to stroke the colour in, because you don't want to go back over it. You've got to do it in one. If you go back over it like I did with the gold, it will show through. So you need to get enough colour on there to fill the petal, and that's where a photocopy will teach you how to do that. You learn which brush you need, because you need a bigger brush for a bigger area. So I will probably go for a number a 0, because what you've got is you've got the colour on the end and the damp brush. Now it's got a rogue hair, so I've got to be a bit careful, but what that will allow you to do is to stroke the colour in and keep going. You keep going in one, and there wasn't enough colour on there, so it will dry. It'll dry through that. There's a bit there, but it will dry. So you've got to learn. So probably that wasn't the best one then. 2 zeros probably the best one. But if you do a photocopy, you need to be able to do that size in one, like I did there, because now I've dampened that page now. There's no colour there. So I need enough colour to keep going. And you stroke the colour in, and again you want to be able to do this in one. But on this page I've tested everything in here. I've tested the Peerless. So we'll get the Peerless, and we'll this is a very vibrant deep blue, this. And you've got to get comfortable as well. You've got to get comfortable. Now this will show through. But if I'm very quick, it won't bleed through. You see that? It bled through. So I won't be using Peerless because I don't want it to bleed through. And I can't be bothered faffing. And I want to be able to just do it. The Inktense pencils, although this is a bit of a big brush, is it probably a bit too wet, maybe. And you're just very quickly stroking that colour in. And that hasn't shown through. So we've got Derwent pencils and Derwent Inktense. Let's have a go with a darker colour. So we'll go with Indigo number. That's quite a dark one. Again, this is a little bit of a damp brush. I didn't want it too damp. You don't want it too damp, too wet. You've got to have it just. It's a very fine line between. It's a very fine line. And there's such a difference there. That's the Inktense and that's the Peerless. And yet the colour is still quite nice and vibrant. This is a little makeup sponge, this, but it's not really working as well. Let's see if it will work this time. So I'm dunking into water and dunking into the sponge. That might be the right amount. Let's have another go. Let's have a go with a Peerless red. But what thing you can't do is mess about. You've got to do this and then stroke the colour and touch the colour, and then you kind of have to go for it. Yeah, and now I can tell that's gone through. That's bled through straight away. So the unless you wanted to do the gessoing, I would stay away from the Peerless watercolours. But I always take a colouring book with me as well. So obviously I use them in the colouring books. I'm just a bit obsessed at the moment with the Derwent. So we'll try a yellow Derwent. And that's given almost the same yellow, but it's not bled through, and that won't show through, I don't think either. No, it's just there. I did try all these the other day actually, but I did know the Inktense would do it. Now I've seen somebody use this and I thought these would go through, so let's practice. These excuse me, are the Hydrus watercolours, and they're fab. What colour I've pulled out. But I wouldn't use them wet. I would use them dry. So you need to dry them out on a palette first, because they will go straight through. I would think they would go straight through, but because I'm using them from here, so we'll try the yellow. And I know there doesn't look to be a lot of colour on there, but there is. Now they've gone through. I can tell straight away, it's bled through straight away. Now another lady's used them and they didn't go through. But unless that's just too wet. Take some water off it. Make it very dry. I'll try again. Yeah, it's gone through again. So I don't know how the lady did it. She used, because she did stroke the whole page, but I've used the Hydrus and they've gone through. But there was a lady on YouTube I was watching last night where they didn't. So again, I won't be using those, but I don't need to. I've got 72 Derwent watercolours, and that's without mixing my own. So let's have another go with a vibrant vivid green. And again, you've just got to be extremely careful with the damp brush. But this is my practice page. You're just stroking the colour. You can't go back over it. Now I've run out of colour there, so let's have a look at the back. It probably was a little bit of a show through. A little bit of a show through. But that might dry. I mean, some of these are peerless. Some of these are. And they haven't gone through. But I'm just not in the dry zone at the moment. It's a fine line between a damp brush and a dry brush. See, that one didn't go through at all. So it's practice. So I would suggest using a back page as a practice rather than a front page. But you know, I thought if I really messed up, I'd just stick it down. But this is the practice. So the day went. So again, I've got another 72 colours, and that's quite a vivid colour, is that? So we'll try this peacock blue, and again, you get to know how dry it is. And we'll do a decent sized one. I don't think that will have shown through a little bit, but it might dry. But I'm still thinking I'm going to stay with the pencils, because I don't really need anything else. But we'll try the Gansai Tambi watercolours. Well, I'm going to make some clear gesso. There are lots of videos on dressoing, but I want to make my own. So because I've got these Gansai Tambi watercolours in here, I've got a lot more control. I've got a lot more control over the colour, and because I've got this damp brush, it's allowing me to drag that colour across. And again, you can see it, but it's not bled through. So most of them are okay. The only one I would say was a real no-no is the because that's an ink as well. That's probably why, because I think the ink based are the peerless. I think that's why it's worked. And again, we'll go for a vivid, and I can tell by the brush that that's a little bit too wet, but under these lights it should dry out. But this is the only way that you can practice, is actually doing it on a page, because you can tell eventually how you want it to be. So that will show through, but it won't bleed through. And that's quite a vivid colour, is that? But the reason I wanted to use this now, I've never used the bronze, so let's try the, I think this is the bronze one. The only shiny ones are the silver, the bronze, and the gold. So with the gold, you have to get quite a lot, because you want the gold flecks. But then really twist that brush out. And this is quite wet, this, so we'll see just how good it is. Again, only touch it once and move on very quickly. This is the wrong size brush for this. It needed a bigger brush. Really. Because you can't go over it again, you're adding too much water. But that one showed through a little bit. Oops. Yeah. Yes, because if you use clear gesso, otherwise you'll go over your words. You gesso. Have a look on YouTube. There's lots of ladies that do it with clear gesso. But I'm going to make my own gesso because I'm going to use it in the Harry Potter books. I'm going to do some oil paintings and acrylics in the Harry Potter books. And I've made some of my own gesso with talcum powder, baby powder, because it's very fine and it disintegrates and you don't ruin your brushes. A lot of gessos wreck your brushes. But again, I don't want to do that in my Bible journal. I want to just sit and do my creative journal as I'm thinking about it. And then I've done my test page. I decided that I just want to just be able to pick up a brush and go for it, rather than having to think, well, if I do that, this is going to happen. I mean, I won't get one this big. All mine will be this size because I am only going on the edges. I will be making a design to go around here with some lettering. And I mean, every design will be different and every colour will be different, so it's not going to get boring, even though I've only got my Derwent watercolours, because you can do lots of different things with them. Did that make sense? So I was quite pleased with that. But have a look at, there's lots of ladies use different things, but I don't want to. It's my choice. I want to be able to sit quietly and just use my 72 watercolour pencils, but you must use them from a paper palette. But you don't have to make a little book, just scribble some squares on the back of a sketchbook and use them. And you can make, there isn't a Payne's grey here, although there are some gorgeous greys. But Payne's grey is a French ultramarine, and a brown. So if we get a burnt umber, and my pencils are in the box somewhere. So well, I'll stop this video and then I'll show you how you can put your colours together. So thank you for watching.